My name is Tiffany Branum, and I have an independent game company. I brought on a few other people who also have careers in the gaming industry to discuss the different kinds of roles that exist within a gaming company and within gaming in general. And those individuals are with me now.
I'm Jeff Berryman. I'm an artist in general, but my career has been in video game development. I'm an animator, a level designer, and texture artist. And I'm brought to Tiffany's company as an artist for many of her games.
My name's Trish Stedman. I am part of Magic Meeple Games. I co-own it with my husband Ian here. We are a board game publisher, and we also organize and run all of Phoenix Comicon's gaming that does not include electronic gaming. So if it's RPGs, tabletops, card games, that's all under my banner.
And that's all on the second floor of the Hyatt.
By the elevators.
Check it out. There's a lot over there. My name is Ian Stedman. I am the co-owner and chief creative officer for Magic Meeple Games. I wear all the hats that I don't have the time or resources to hire someone else for, which includes pretty much everything. Design, development, marketing, sometimes illustration, lots of graphic design. Yeah, that's what I do.
Which is exactly,
I make games.
Which is exactly why there are so many different roles within the gaming community. A lot of them are really compartmentalized, where you would have 6 different roles and people that are necessary to create one game. I know a lot of people have the idea of their game, the thing that they want to make, but you're not going to make it alone. You're going to have other people on board. I know I've worked with at least a dozen other people for every one of my games. I primarily start with the design and move into the designing aspects of the games, but there are certainly plenty of things I cannot do myself, and that's why we're talking about the different careers. So I personally start with the design aspect of a game and what I want a game to do, what I want it to look like, how I want it to run, but other components of that are, once I script this thing, I need somebody else, a third party, to review it, make sure that it looks good enough to spend money on the artwork. And that's something that Jeff has more experience with.
Right. So one of the things that can be career paths for you in tabletop gaming is you've got to be able to design different elements. Playing cards are one of the ones that I have the most experiences with. You have to make sure the information is legible, readable, very quick and easy to understand, and be able to lay out, as well as board game elements, any other elements that you're going to need in the game. And somebody who has a good eye for design needs to be able to work with the game designer, be able to understand their vision of where they're wanting to go, and be able to do that. Are you going to continue? Go into graphics?
Well, you can do individual components of the artwork, and then you can also do the graphic design. Sometimes the same person does both components, but not necessarily.
Right. And so there is a distinct difference between somebody who's creating the art that is going to convey the story or the mood or the general feel for the game, and then you have somebody who's going to create the mechanical end, the stuff that is going to convey the gameplay. The graphic artist needs to support the gameplay at all times. Gameplay is the most important feature of this. So you do have 2 different types of artists who are going to be able to do this. Then you have somebody who has to kind of wrangle the cats. This can be your art coordinator, your art director, whoever you want to call this. This person has to have an overall view and vision of what this game is going to be, where it's going, and what is trying to be communicated through the story, because all we've got are pictures. We're not going to be able to read you the story as to what's going on. Battle Gnomes is a great example here. We have this world that's instantly conveyed to you by these small little creatures, these garden gnomes, who apparently are very upset at each other. Why is that? You have to play the game to find out. Then we also have artists who are doing production for the business end. And these are 4 different hats here, but sometimes it's worn by the same person. Somebody has to do ads, somebody has to do box art, somebody has to do flyers, somebody has to do business cards. So these rulebook illustrations, there's actually 2 different subsets right there. Somebody who does covers and does rulebook covers is probably going to be a different person than who does the illustrations inside the rulebook itself. So these are different paths that you can go into gaming as different careers.
And just an example of that is for Battle Gnomes, I actually had 4 different types of artists. One was for the gnomes themselves, another was for all of the other artwork in the game, and a third was for the graphic design of it, which is different than the interior artwork. And then a 4th was for all my promotional work. So you can take on any one of these artistic talents. You can take on several, wear multiple hats. What about Magic Meeple Games? Do you have any experience similar to that?
Experience in hiring artists, or?
And the different types of artists that you might use and the different kinds of people you've worked with there.
Yeah, Fire of Eidolon is a really good example. This game had 2 different artists. One artist for the full resolution cover art that you see here, and then another artist for all of the game components, which are all scaled down to a 16-bit style, like a Super Nintendo game. So I had to do the art direction to get those ideas coherent, so what one artist was doing didn't look so dramatically out of the park from what the other one was delivering. And it came together really, really well.
We had 2 graphic designers as well.
We did have 2 new graphic designers on this one. I was one of them, and Mary Traherne did the rest of it. And being able to sit side by side with one person to say, oh, you know, this is what the vision is, this is what it needs to look like, we need to have these aesthetics, and it needs to be consistent across the entire product, start to finish. It's very, very important.
Artwork is one of the biggest pieces of the game. It's what people buy. People don't buy the game. People buy the artwork unless they've actually played it before, which is why they play the game. So it's a huge amount of the work done, and of course, there are several different methods of turning that into a career. Now, I had talked earlier too about I generally come up with an idea and then how I want it to function, and then there are editors. That's also an entirely it's a pretty diverse level of staff that you may have on a project. Did you guys use editors or people that you worked with to make sure that everything moved smoothly? How did you do that?
Yeah, I had a lot of copy editors helping me make sure that everything was coherent, readable, no errors, no spelling mistakes, and things like that. That's especially important, that not just one person has their eyes on any single thing. You got to have multiple people looking at it, because, you know, sometimes you don't want to get to the point where you've ordered 10,000 copies of something and then find a typo on it. That's a nightmare. You don't want that. So have as many people as you can, just, you know, professional editors and non-professional alike, because they look at things differently. A graphic designer is going to proofread something completely differently than a copy editor would, because the graphic designer is just looking to make sure that the tables are right and not broken and everything's positioned properly and spaced evenly. The text is just lorem ipsum to them. They don't see any of it. If it's you know, just gibberish, they're not looking for that. And then you want someone to really go over and put the microscope on the text itself, and have 2 different people doing that.
At minimum.
Yeah, at minimum. So if you're in a proofreading, a lot of creative writing goes into the rulebooks too, because there's narrative there, and there's career opportunities in that area as well.
Right. Absolutely, there are definitely opportunities there. And then once you've got the idea and you've skinned it, you've given it the art, you've given it its look, now you just have this item and you have to figure out what to do with it. You have to create prototypes, you have to decide which manufacturer you're going to work with, then you have to work with shipping, and then ideally, of course, publishing, whether you're self-publishing or working with a larger publisher. And I know that Trish has some extensive experience in this area, making sure that she gets the games of her company out where they need to go.
It's time for someone to wake up.
Good morning or afternoon. So, a little bit of back history. It took us a really long time to get into publishing. It was a very large commitment for us to make, because it's not something that you're going to do in your 5 minutes of spare time. That Ian works from home. It is a full-time job. It is a second full-time job on top of mine. And when you're publishing games, you have to look at a bunch of different aspects. So careers within our company are a sales director. This person is going to go and they're going to network with your distributors. They're going to network with your local game stores. They're going to work with your national game stores, make partnerships for you in order to get your name and your brand out there. They're going to
Kickstarter fulfillment too.
Absolutely. They're going to talk to your reviewers. They're going to be your marketing mouthpiece. I cannot stress that enough. You have to have a marketing mouthpiece. I have somebody that does logistics. She literally is the person that keeps me sane because I was doing this before. But you'll go to different events, you'll demo your games, and you can specialize in logistics, setting up events, setting up your schedule, making sure the travel is booked, making sure your packing list is correct. I know that seems like menial stuff, but it literally is a full-time job. When you are moving a business, even a two-person, for the most part, business around the country, you're taking a mobile office with you. So logistics is a critical piece that you have to be looking at. The other piece that you really need to be looking at, before I'll let Ian talk to the creative side of publishing, is the business aspect of things. You need to make sure you have your business license. If you're publishing and you're going to be selling retail, you need to make sure you have your sales tax licenses. You need to make sure that, I would highly recommend, if you ever decide that you want to start your own company, regardless of whether you're an artist, a publisher, or what have you, research the different type of companies that are out there. I highly recommend, if you're not going to be a corporation, to be an LLC to protect yourself and your own assets, so they are different than the companies. Pardon?
And have a lawyer do the article.
Yes, yes. Have a lawyer that you can consult about your business. That should be like step one. Sit down, decide that you're going to do a business, and go to a corporate lawyer with all of your questions. Also have an accountant, because if you're paying anyone, you need to make sure that you have all of your tax forms on lockdown, because the IRS is big and scary. And when they come knocking on your door, it is usually not cheap. I'm trying to think of anything else in regards to publishing.
Patricia brings up a really good point. She actually publish their games. Not all gamers, game designers do, and you might work on a game that is being published through maybe a larger publishing medium or an independent company like myself, which is a little smaller. Branum Games is an LLC, and it's a little bit smaller, but I self-publish. So when you look at which company you want to work for or decide which company you want to be, do the research about it, figure out what is expected from them to you and what you can expect from the company. And just look into what any company that you're interested in, because her and I, we do have different types of companies, so that's an interesting point.
Absolutely.
And not all of it is direct hire either. A lot of it, the majority of it, in fact, is contract based. So a lot of our artists will have a contract for a single project, and we'll have our agreement, and they'll be paid for that. And then they may be working for 12 other companies at the same time, and that's up to them. That's in their right to do so. And in almost every aspect of this, there are opportunities to find work on a contract basis for that, for graphic designers and artists and copy editors, and even the game design itself was a contract. Michael Lipton designed this game. I didn't design this from scratch. I developed it with him. Videographers too. The developer role. Yeah, because when a game comes to the table for the first time, it's just an idea. It's not a finished product. It doesn't have a lot of artwork on it, maybe some placeholder stuff, and it doesn't really have a kind of a character of its own. And that's one of the things that a developer has to kind of bring to that product, give it a kind of a spirit of its own and something to make it whole. And bringing the art together, the aesthetics, even the keywords and the vocabulary you use in the rules and the mechanisms can all lend to bringing cohesion to that product.
If you're developing and you decide to be a developer, obviously you'll have contracted terms with your designer, but do not be afraid to follow those. And if you need to overhaul someone's baby, you need to do it. Fire Eidolon came to us with a completely different theme.
Yeah, it was a game with a Greek theme on it, and The guy pitched it to me. He said, "Yeah, Zeus is pissed. He took fire away from humans for the hubris, and now you've got to get it back and prove you're worthy." And we play tested it with tons of groups, and they said, "Yeah, this is like Zelda or Gauntlet," and that's kind of when we knew we kind of had to turn it into a little more of a video game theme, and that was the click. That's what really had everything fall into place. So it's not going to be an instant thing. It's a process, and that takes time.
Absolutely.
And
One of the hard things about any kind of career that revolves around contracting, and those do exist. I know Jeff does a lot of contract work.
Mm-hmm.
One of the challenging things is you do have to work with the person that's paying you.
Mm-hmm.
They want you there because they're trusting your expertise. So tell them what you think they should know about the game and the direction that it's going and the artwork that you're doing, or the rules that you're reviewing. Give them some good, honest feedback. Of course, you do have to go with what they want. At the end of the day, they're going to make the final decision, but they want you to be honest with them, and you have to understand what kind of a job that is, contract work, which is pervasive in the gaming industry.
And one of the things that I would add to that is anybody who's going to work contract, you need to be very clear and upfront about expectations, both your expectations and their expectations, and make sure that is clearly stated in your documentation.
And do not be afraid to negotiate.
Yeah.
It's absolutely something that when, for example, we have a contract with Michael Lipton, we will send him a copy of our contract, and we update our contracts on a regular basis to be industry standard. However, it's a two-way street. We've got to make sure that it's profitable for our designer, and so it is. Before, we've signed 3 contracts with 2, and every time we're having conversations, he's asking us those hard questions. Don't be afraid to negotiate for yourselves.
You are your own best advocate.
And if you're considering some work with another party, and they kind of want to proceed like, yeah, we'll just do this, we won't have a contract, don't go forward with that. You need to have at least some kind of written agreement. You don't need to have a lawyer involved. Just the basic terms of what's supposed to be accomplished in exchange for what, by when, just written down, signed by both parties, and you're good. That's something, and then you can get started. So don't freak out like, oh my God, I've got to get an attorney to have all these documents made. It's not necessary. Just the key part is that expectations are clear and deadlines are clear, and as long as everything is kosher on that end, you're very unlikely to have any other problems and friction.
One of the things that I would also add to that is somebody who doesn't want to have a contract with you, I bet you they're paying you an exposure. No, never work for free. Never.
You don't need to, is the point. There are lots of people. I mean, even if it's a meager amount, or if you have to wait until after the Kickstarter, you should definitely be paid for what you're skilled at. I hire people who do Kickstarter videos for our campaigns, and there are people much younger than I who are much better at YouTube than I am, and I love to have their help on board when we have a project coming down. So if you do video reviews of board games, or like how to play videos, there is a huge demand for that, and that's something that anyone can do from their home, more or less. And art can be done from home, graphic design can be done from home. It's really cool in how this industry is booming.
So one of the other things that a company needs is marketing, and there are a variety of ways to do that. You can certainly hire a company, you can also hire individuals. And sometimes you do have a lot more people to wrangle than you necessarily anticipated. How has Magic Meeple Games kind of dealt with that component for themselves?
We do all of our marketing ourselves. We do a lot of we go to a lot of panels to learn more about social media marketing and things like that. There's a lot of good content at Gamma I saw about these kinds of things. And to be perfectly honest, it's something I need a lot more help with because it's too much for one person to do.
Yeah.
But, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter are the big 3 that we focus on, and Board Game Geek above all else. If you're looking to have a game out in the public, in eyes, in any way whatsoever, get it listed on Board Game Geek.
It's a free listing.
Yeah, it's
It just
totally
needs to be
free.
approved.
So I actually have somebody that is a super fan of my games, just loves my games, but I don't have it in my budget to pay them right now. So of her own volition, she actually does a lot of the social media stuff. And I appreciate that. I never offer somebody, hey, you'll get exposure. If I'm gonna do something for somebody, I'm gonna pay them. But of course, she's just doing it. She knows that but the moment I have that budget, I'm hiring this person. It's definitely a foot in the door. The moment I have the opportunity, I'm gonna do something where I can pay her for more critical projects, for bigger projects, not just because she's shown that she's interested in being part of the company at that level. And that's actually another component of it, is how you would get your foot in the door, how you get involved in game companies to begin with, how you get hired on, or how you get the contracts. There's certainly a variety of ways to do it. I know people who have just stepped up, who later got a job from me, a contracted position, because they stepped up at one point and said, hey, I'm interested in what you have. And in this situation with her, she has done a lot of that for me, and I'm trying to figure out how to make that work more on an official level.
Everyone that does a favor for me, helps me out, at least gets copies of the game. That's
Right,
easy to
that's
do.
definitely something. You
Yeah.
definitely
Yes.
get copies of the game, and yeah, I definitely try to reward you.
Snacking goodies, and that's.
In the marketing field, and this is across all aspects, but any social media marketing, there's a big trend for community managers.
Yes.
Managing, like Yelp has community managers. Different companies, I've seen community managers, like Tasty Minstrel Games has a community manager.
Undead Viking, if
Right.
anyone's familiar with his channel, he's now the community manager for Tasty Minstrel.
Yeah, and interacting with the people on social media, that's huge. You can sit there and you can post all day long, and if I'm sitting here on Facebook, at 11 o'clock in the bathroom, because let's be honest, Facebook bathroom, right? See, I'm going, okay, this is nice. I might ask a question, maybe if I see something, but are they going to answer me? And that's where a community manager comes in, interacting with your backers, interacting with your followers, interacting with the people that need to talk to you. So that is a huge career path, and it's absolutely legit.
The
I'll be
Dark Rock
honest,
Ventures campaign
when-
ended 2 years ago, and I'm still fielding questions from people and talking to the community for that Kickstarter. So that's that's a long-term investment. Even when the Kickstarter's over, you still got to have someone interacting with that community.
I really thought that the easiest part of starting the game company would be interacting with people on social media, because I like Facebook.
Well, that's actually.
It's pretty overwhelming. Did you have a question?
Yeah, along with the social media stuff for marketing, do you need a website as well?
I would highly
I-
recommend it.
Those can get expensive.
That's another career that a person, can look at, is website management or maintenance or developers.
Art, for that matter.
Or even artwork. I did have somebody do all my infographics. That was the fourth artist for Battle Gnomes doing all my infographics. So yeah, that's definitely another career path for people, or at least a way to be contracted into a gaming company.
And something you can do to mitigate that cost, this is my tech nerd coming out, sorry, is we utilize WordPress for our website because it's highly customizable. You can get free WordPress accounts. So
It's very easy to learn too. That's another chief contributor why I chose that.
absolutely, but buy the domain, because domains can be inexpensive. You can get them from GoDaddy, you can get them from a one-in-one, you can get them from DreamHost. There's a bunch of different places you can buy the domain. And then instead of buying the hosting package where it's on their server, etc., you have your WordPress just direct your URL to your WordPress site. So all you're paying for every year is the domain name. Now, if you become an Asmodee or something like that, WordPress is going to go, yeah, guys, we can't host your stuff. But right. But for getting started in, this is my portfolio of art. This is the games I've designed. This is my publishing company. It's absolutely a legitimate way to do that, to mitigate that cost.
So what I'd like to do is just review real quick the different kind of careers we've talked about. If you have any questions about them, certainly in about 10 minutes we'll be taking questions. So we've talked about the idea person. You can't really get into the career that way, but you can certainly work with somebody else. If you've got somebody else to work with, then you can get your foot in the door. Then you've got your editors, your writers, and then you have your artists, from internal pieces to the graphic design to the promotional artists. Then you have people in marketing, and from your community managers to other larger marketing pieces. And then of course you've got your publishers that you have to work with, and you even have manufacturers and shipping that you have to, distributors that you have to work with as well. So it's a variety of options and areas to go into. People don't just make a game.
You missed one.
Oh.
Convention managers.
Oh, convention managers, yeah.
If you are insane, this job is for you. We run right now on schedule. We've got like 2,246 hours of gaming. Hyatt, second floor and first floor. That's not including video gaming.
And the third floor.
And the third floor, in a 4-day period of time. This is a full-time job. It is a thankless job. You will be herding cats. You will be spinning 15 plates. I guarantee you will break at least 5 of those plates. And you will ask yourself why you do this. But at the end of the day, the reason I do it is because when I walk into the Hyatt and I see all those people hanging out with their friends, having a good time, making memories that last a lifetime, that's why I do what I do. So it is a thankless job. It's not going to be one that you're going to make huge tons of money at, and the industry is changing. As many of you know, with the whole shift with Phoenix Comicon going from volunteer staff to paid staff, they are looking very carefully at all companies. If you are a for-profit company, volunteers are a tricky thing. I highly recommend speaking with legal counsel before you decide to take on volunteers.
So yeah, she's a huge job, and it's pretty impressive how well she does it. You should check it out over at the Hyatt.
I couldn't do it without those guys.
So, so actually at the Hyatt too, and in the exhibitor hall, you'll have a variety of independent game designers. Go into the areas, ask where they might be. You might could just go to Game Central and ask for any game designers that might be there. There are definitely a handful. People are willing to talk about this, I've found. They're willing to talk about what they've learned or know, or if they, and it's all such a networking opportunity that the next thing I wanted to get into was how to get into it.
Yeah.
How to be able to be a part of this.
That's
Did you
why
have
you
some
guys are
ideas?
here, right?
Right? Exactly. Do you guys have any ideas?
If you want to break into some kind of career in the game industry at large, you're at the right place. Coming to conventions and talking to the people that are in it is absolutely the #1 best way to introduce yourself and get your foot in the door. You never know what they're going to do. Someone needs, if you're really great at something, tell them. So, hey, you're hiring someone that can do this. Or you're looking for someone.
Analog tabletop community, from what I have found, I mean, you're always going to have your, shall we say, bad apples in anything, but for the most part, it's,
Sorry.
I know, but we're not supposed to talk about that here. They're not we're not a community of, oh, this is mine, you can't have it, I'm not going to talk to you about it. We will share what we know. We will tell you, don't do this, it's really bad. Or we'll tell you what works and what's successful. We want more people in this industry. Tiffany has her own publishing company. We have our own publishing company. I'm not in competition with Tiffany. Why? Because that's the amazing part. There are so many fresh, unique, and different ideas that we may have over 800 board games, but there's always room for more.
Yep.
So yeah, just make those conversations. I know that not everybody is very comfortable being very social or putting themselves out there, but it's really a big piece of this entire thing. And I know that, so one way that you can get involved too in a game company is to, of course, play their games, figure out if you like what they have to offer. I know that a lot of the people that run my games for me, that demo my games for me, and I compensate them, they love the games, they enjoy it, they become self-promoters, then they support me in ways that I don't necessarily ask them to do, like being on panels, outside of this one, so they're out there supporting me and providing me this feedback, these things that I need, because they played the games and they enjoyed them, and then they became part of the group, part of the Branum Games team. And when you're part of that team, you got your foot in the door, and that gives you an opportunity. So last year I went to LA, and of course I paid for 2 of these really stand-up people to go with me. Like, hey, you know,
We'll get you a badge and some swag, and maybe even a small check in some cases, and it's a great way to get involved.
Real quick, show of hands, how many artists are in this room? All right, how many of you brought portfolios? Oh,
All right.
wow. All right, there's your first lesson on how to get into games.
Oh, wait, hey, Laura Hines, Wave Lady, thank you. She has her portfolio at Game Central in a glass case. You guys should check it out. Her stuff is amazing.
that's how you do it.
You come to these kinds of events, you get involved, you go up and you play the games, you learn about the companies that you want to be a part of, and you look at the kind of art that they're doing. Sometimes a company will have a very distinctive art style, sometimes they have a nice breadth of style, but they may have something that you really like. Talk to them. Put yourself out there. I said this on a previous panel. Be vulnerable. It's hard, we're artists, you know, but you're going to have to risk that chance of being rejected, because, oh my God, when you get accepted, it's the greatest feeling in the world.
There's nothing better.
Nothing better.
I rejected one of my artists twice before hiring him. Well, he came over because we were all hanging out. I was a group of friends, and it was a friend of a friend, and he came over, and he knew what I did, and he's like, oh, well, check out this. And then the next time he was like, oh, well, hey, look what and I wasn't looking for an artist. I already had, you know, my artist, and then one of my artists dropped. And then he comes over again, like a couple weeks later, he's like, how's those games doing? And I'm like, you know what? Let's talk. And he actually is one of the artists for Battle Gnome. So I wasn't looking for an artist, but he put himself out there, and you know, he's working on another project for me at this time, so it worked for him. He was not swayed when I didn't need him the first couple of times.
And the other advantage of putting yourself out there, meeting other artists. Hey, artists, you need to get together and talk to each other, by the way. Learn from each other. You also network, and when somebody says, hey, you know, I need an artist, well, you know, I've got this friend that does this particular style. That's actually how I got involved with Tiffany. Was, oddly enough, we have over 150 common friends on Facebook, and we've never met each other. And somebody had said, hey, there's this artist person out there. He does this kind of work. She goes, okay, cool. I saw that this game was coming out, was being very, very popular. It was doing very well last year. And I reached out to her and said, hey, congratulations to the game. We should work together. And it was really that simple.
It was kind of that simple, because 3 people recommended him to me. 3 people, right? So be likable, because it'll help you. They all thought he was just the bee's knees, and I'm like, well, of course I've got to, talk to this guy.
The story of how I had my first game in public, my first game that I designed published, is very similar, because you just make friends with all of the other people in the industry, and if you pitch a game to a publisher, you know, that it doesn't really gel with their style and their brand and their line, but they know someone else who might need it, you know, who might be looking for a game like that. It's like, oh, I know these guys do, you know, thematic games with ninjas, you know, check them out. And so just keep meeting up with more people and keep the network growing, because everybody knows everybody in this industry.
And events like this are invaluable. You are in the best place that you can be to get into this industry right now.
Absolutely.
I think with that, we're ready for questions that the floor might have. Yes, ma'am.
Okay, so you guys were talking about portfolios. I don't have a physical portfolio. I have a digital on the computer one. So if you have I have a business card that has my portfolio.
Perfect.
That's excellent.
Perfect.
You may also want to consider putting a QR code on your business card or any signage. That way somebody can walk up with their phone, go beep, and they open your website.
Here's the thing is, when I talk to artists, I love seeing a physical portfolio on site at the show. I do like to see that, but I can't give it the attention and detail that I need to make an art direction decision at a convention. So something I can take home and say, oh yeah, I remember talking to this person, I want to go see their artwork again, and then I can put the magnifying glass on it, you know, at the office. And that is, you got it. That's the way to go. Have that. Business card with a website on it, online portfolio, A+, way to go.
So say you've identified your role within like this game community team, and you've identified that your role is more of on the narrative side. You enjoy making stories. Kind of along with the portfolio thing, how would you go about portfolioizing your stories that you like to make?
Creative writing portfolios.
Yeah.
How do you get someone to read that though? How do you create an audience for something that long and that involved?
Well, it sounds like you're referring to a desire to work in RPGs. Is that more what you're referring to?
I would say that's accurate.
Okay, well, there are definitely several people who are designers in RPGs that are going to be here this weekend.
Is John Wick doing any panels?
I think
you know?
So if you come to the board game design contest that's over in the Hyatt, second floor, on I think Saturday, you'll have to, Saturday. John Wick is going to be one of the judges, and he would probably be the best person to ask since he just had 7th Sea come out.
Okay.
Yeah.
He's a very successful role-play game designer. That's a mouthful right there. But he can tell you how to set up that kind of a portfolio, and I would definitely suggest ingratiating yourself with people who are involved. He got a bunch of people involved who were interested that he hadn't met before just a few years ago. They were interested, they got to know him, what he does, and they started to work with him. So it really is just about getting to know the people who are doing the kind of games that you're interested in.
And the name was John Wick?
John Wick, W-I-C-K.
Just
Like the movie.
Yeah.
All right, thank
Yep.
you.
Don't
Just
make
like-
that joke.
He hates that, by the way.
Sir. Yes.
I have a two-part question. I know this works with tabletop games, but will all this information be applicable to video game?
Yes. For the most part, yes.
Yes.
Second of all, I am interested in more of like a director kind of position. How would I showcase that?
I think,
Director of what, exactly?
Just kind of like overall, just like,
Like a project director or an art director? Or,
Yeah.
okay.
yeah.
Sorry. Get involved with a development team
No,
first.
what do you
The first thing you probably need to do to break in is offer to be accredited playtester on some products. Fantasy Flight Games was one of the companies I worked with very early on to give them feedback and revision on their rule sets and things. I think my name's on a couple of their things. But working up from a position like that, from compensated tester with written reviews back to them and reports up to development team, and then more of a chief designer role, and then project director is where that kind of progression will lead to.
It's usually an earned position. I come at it from a video game. Everybody who wants to make a video game wants to be a game designer. And that's actually an earned position within the industry. So you actually have to come in somewhere else and prove your chops, and it's no different in tabletop industry.
yeah, unless you want to just start your own company out of the gate, then yeah, definitely working your way up, showing that you understand the other positions that you want to later manage. And was there a hand in the back there?
Yeah, me.
What's up?
So I've actually turned down a lot of jobs or project offers because it's always been like, well, they'll compensate me with exposure, with future money, which is currently non-existent. And so I turned it down. And so in the interest of like providing constructive criticism to people who offer me these, because usually they're close friends, what are some things I can say to them about like, more along the lines like, if you're serious about this project, you need to put your money where your mouth is. What are like some strategies I might be able to offer them?
So I would recommend, it is a perfectly usable industry standard for me to say, I'm having a Kickstarter, here's the date, here are the terms, I will pay you after the Kickstarter, if that's something you're amicable with. But get a contract. And that's how you do it. You say, with the exposure, that's something, like he said, that's not something you do. Future money, I might revisit your stance on that and be willing, but like he said, always have a contract.
Just have something written.
Even if it's your best friend, just to cover your bases. And especially if it's family.
Also,
Friends are
also
really,
assess the nature of the situation too, because if they're saying, okay, you'll get paid when I do, because this is a passion project and I'm looking for people who are also passionate about it, that's one thing. If they're getting money and you're not, that's a problem.
friends are really challenging to work with, so you might just say, hey, unless we make this purely a business relationship, then I think it's gonna get complicated, and that's why you say, I can't do this without the compensation that I feel like I need, just because it'll get sticky otherwise, and the project and our friendship will take a sour turn. And that might be just be one way to approach it.
Yeah.
So, more questions?
Yes, this gentleman right here.
Okay, so going at it from more of a overall business perspective rather than an individual role. When you're looking at manufacturers and distribution, what kind of red flags do you look for?
Chiefly the things that I hear in just passing with other publishers, publishers and manufacturers. So there are some companies out there that are widely used that have better reputations than others, and it really comes down to more than just the price, but also the customer service. So you may have different manufacturing companies that give you these offers that promise you great prices, but you can't really understand their email. It's not written well. The English is not very good, and you're not sure if they're actually understanding all the instructions that you're giving to them. So there are some risks involved, and if you're not sure about the legitimacy of a certain manufacturer or distributor, especially in the tabletop gaming industry, just Google their name and Board Game Geek and see what comes up. And people in this industry are very, very verbal about any problems they have with anyone, and unfortunately a lot of us Kickstarter creators get caught in that crosshair because Kickstarters are late. It's just a fact of life. If it's 3 months late, it's on time. And people can really rage out about that, but there are some track record histories, and I'll refrain from calling anyone out specifically, but if you're looking at a company that has had problems with any aspect of the industry in the past, it's well documented, I assure you.
And with manufacturers and distributors, especially in the tabletop industry, if you have not been reading Jamie Stegmeier's blog from Stonemaier Games, you're really missing out, because he shares everything. He literally went through and benchmarked multiple shipping companies. So you know what questions to ask, you know what pitfalls to look for, and that's a Google Doc that's just out there for anybody to take a look at. And it's broken down by US, it's broken down by international. Especially with shipping, you need to make sure that they can handle your international backers if you're doing a Kickstarter before you do your Kickstarter, because that is the last thing you want, is to be in the middle of a Kickstarter and have decided on who you're going to have doing the shipping and then tell you, oh, we can't handle your international backers. That's a huge problem.
Or oops, you sold too many, we can't move that much.
Right.
I have two things on that. One, they're absolutely right. If there is an issue in this community, people will know about it. So don't burn any bridges on your way. Don't think, well, I don't really have to be friendly to that person, or I can tell to this person a certain, don't be unfriendly. People will know about it. It's not that big of a community. We all know about each other. It's one of those things. The other thing is know what you want, because you sometimes can sacrifice time for cost. Especially with manufacturers, is a huge thing I noticed. This might happen a lot faster, but you're gonna get the lower quality, or this might happen a lot faster, but you're gonna pay a lot more. So that's why you might go abroad instead of local. So just kind of know what your priorities are when you're looking at that too, because someone else might love this company and they're perfectly fine, but it doesn't meet what you need, either by time frame or cost. It just doesn't work for you. So know what you want when you're reading the list of and Googling the names of the manufacturers you're interested in.
And if you happen to have the extra cash, you can absolutely ask to tour some of their facilities. Gen Con is a very good convention to go to network with industry people within the gaming realm. It is exceptional. You have multiple distributors, you have multiple manufacturers, and you can sit there and you can talk with the account reps. You can touch, feel, handle like all of the products to see, is this truly the quality that I want my game to have, or do I like this manufacturer better? Because there's some things, like everybody's going to offer the standard playing card size, but some manufacturers offer different things than others.
Absolutely.
And there's a Facebook group for that too, board game manufacturing. There's a Facebook group that's run by industry professionals. Actually, as a matter of fact, for every career aspect that we've discussed here today, there is a Facebook group for that is curated by professionals, and they are more than willing to answer the questions that are written there. So
network here, but also go
Yeah.
home and network there, and everybody does
Find
chat
those
quite a
groups.
bit. They like to talk about what they do because we all love what we do. So are there any other questions? Oh, I'm right in the back with the white glove, is that? Oh,
How do you do a creative writing development portfolio?
oh, and we had talked about that briefly before, but we think you should probably network with John Wick, who does a lot of actual writing in the gaming industry. Role-playing is a good part of the industry to go into if that's what you're interested in, is the creative writing part. Otherwise, you can be an editor or focus on the thematics of a game, but just network. Continue to network with people who are in it.
the creative writing panels here are actually quite good, I hear as well. I'm not sure who exactly is on those, but I know there's a little bit of overlap. We just keep name dropping John because he's a good friend of ours, but he knows a lot of people that do creative writing. His circle, his network is very rich in creative writers because he's a role-playing game writer. So yeah, seek out the Wrecking Crew. They're a bunch of indie RPG folks that are in the third floor of the Hyatt. Crit Hit, run by Jim Miller. He knows a lot of the role-playing people in the industry.
That's on the first
independent, yeah, that's on the first floor of the Hyatt. A lot of independent role-playing game companies in there. And that will probably be a much better direction to go than kind of the branches that we all go off onto.
Right.
We can probably take about 3 or 4 more questions. Yes, sir.
Okay, so let's see if I can put this in a way that's coherent. What are you looking for in a portfolio from an artist or a designer or a photographer or whatever?
Personally, I generally know what I'm looking for when I start looking. So I have an idea. It's not a particular style, but I have an idea because my games are not all the same. Sometimes I go with a different type of style, but I generally know what I can't even describe it. I just know what I'm looking for when I reach out, but then I keep other artists that I see that I like, I keep them in mind and I go back to them later.
It's a very small community when it comes to the artists, believe it or not. Various producers, various art directors find artists that they like. They may not be able to use them immediately, but they will definitely keep them on file. So what you can do to help you is to always keep your portfolio up to date, always have 10 very strong pieces in there that show off who you are. If you've got a particular style, focus on that style. If you have a good breadth of style, focus on that too. Put yourself out there, but always keep your stuff up to date.
Questions? In the back.
So how does one start on like the creative writing path? Like just networking like you guys said? Or?
The creative writing path is in which way? For role-playing games? Or
Yeah, for example, like anything such as that, yeah.
Start writing. Start GMing games for your friends.
Right.
Absolutely. Just pick a system that you liked on D&D, Pathfinder, GURPS.
Come up with
oh my God, you're
stories.
fired.
Come up with storylines that you like, and like they were saying, there are actually some really good creative writing panels that you should definitely try to attend. Talk to people who have anything to do with role-playing games because they're entrenched in creative writing. That's what they do, is create a story.
We've been talking a lot about Board Game Geek. RPG Geek also exists. It is a very strong community. It's not as large as Board Game Geek, unfortunately, but great resources in there too. Just start a thread. If you don't see what you're looking for on the forums there, just say, hey, I'm looking to get started here. Who can point me in a direction? And so there'll be a lot of people who will be happy to point you in the right way.
Oh, and the last thing is, it doesn't hurt to take any community college classes on creative writing.
Go to workshops.
Or workshops.
And also suggest some theater too, would not hurt.
Right. Anything artistic. All right, we've got this hand in the back, then we'll do the one in the front.
Yeah, I'm currently working in marketing using augmented reality, and I'm
curious if you guys have any thoughts on how augmented reality affects marketing in the game industry from your guys' perspective.
Yes, I do have thoughts on that.
Yes, I do too.
I have enough thoughts on that to fill an entire panel. I think AR and VR are going to be an excellent enhancement to a tabletop game experience, interacting with other people at the same time. I think there is a big future in that.
So work on those skills and.
Yeah.
All right.
It's like everyone's seen the Yu-Gi-Oh cartoon where they play the card and a big monster pops out and starts fighting their opponent, right? Well, if I put a card on the table and a monster pops out of it, because I've got my headset on and starts fighting with my opponents, that's going to be awesome.
Right?
The first person who cracks that nut is going to be
Games of the future. I can't wait to see it.
It is getting there.
What is a typical non-insulting rate to offer an artist for box art for a beginning developer?
I generally, for box art, I generally provide the artwork and then have them put all of the fancy, necessary extra items and then make it look pretty. I generally pay about $150 to $300 for a one-time contract deal. So that's within my budget, and my artists have been comfortable with that so far.
I think for Fire of Eidolon, it was a package deal, but I think the cover illustration mathematically worked out to about $250. Really, it's what you've got to focus on. Are you on the artist side of the table, or are you on the graphic design, like art director side of the table?
I do art, but most of my everything is, I have the mechanics and the idea, and I just need people to put colors places.
Okay. Yeah.
Put the
So
pieces
I mean,
together,
the
sure.
most important thing is don't overextend yourself. Say, okay, this is what I can afford right now. I don't want to offend you. Does this sound amicable to you? And just be upfront and honest. I mean, that is the best policy. And if they say, okay, my usual rate is this. This is a little bit lower than that. Maybe we can work something out, like post Kickstarter or over time or something like that. If it's a really good fit and the artist is good for the project and you're really passionate about making that work, most artists care enough about what they do to make those kinds of things work if there's a way to make it happen. Other folks, they've been in the industry for 30 years, they've got contracts like crazy, they can't work for less than $1,000 a piece. It's like, okay, I get that, move on.
I've had to decline artists before, and I told them, I remember this one girl, I was like, your artwork is brilliant, I love it. I can't afford you. You should work with somebody who can afford you. Unfortunately, that's not where my company was at a year ago, so I had to decline on it, but we both understood that I, was just...
Yeah. Exposure is a good thing too, but it shouldn't be the only thing you're working for.
No.
Brandy York wanted to get her name out. She was doing a lot of art at conventions just like this, of characters from Supernatural and the Dresden Files, and the art was great. And we asked her, hey, would you like to make art for a board game? And she was elated. It was a wonderful arrangement. So, there are so many different kinds of people with different desires, and some people will want to work for just next to nothing because they want to see their art on a shelf in a store, and that really speaks to my heart too. It meant a lot to me to see my stuff on a shelf for the first time. Sometimes that's what motivates you.
Yeah, my recommendation for you is if you want an artist, is to go to conventions like these, walk around Artist Alley, talk with them, just talk with them. I've had conversations with artists that I say, how much would you charge me for a box cover? And they're like $1,000. And I'm like, I appreciate that. I will keep your information on file and, we'll go forward. Or, I get $150 and I love their art. And
then we hire them.
You never know until you ask.
Yeah.
And some of them know their prices, some of them don't. It just depends on how they structure, how they want to be paid.
Sometimes that's going to be based on the project itself.
And
We have
also be sure to consider any revisions. So if you're going to tell your artist, I want this one piece and this is what it needs to be, and they give it back to you and a bunch of things that are, it's not what you had in mind, that time's got to be taken into account, because they might get really upset if nobody talked about any revisions.
Included in the contract.
Yeah.
And they should be revisions, at least 2 or 3 in any contract.
Yeah.
So we have time for one more question, and then we're going to hang out so that you can chat with us about our individual interests. And what do you have there, sir?
So I'm just curious about basically how one would get into testing board guys.
Ooh, I love that question.
Here's our new board game we're designing. Let me know if it's fun.
That's great.
Yes.
I was asking how he can play test games, and actually, coincidentally, I have 2 games that are in play test mode in the Hyatt right now.
Second floor by the elevator.
Escalator, not elevator.
No, she's maybe sandwiched in between.
That's true. Elevator does this, escalator does this.
So yeah, second floor of the Hyatt, but there are a lot of conventions where people will tell you the stage of their project, or even if you know that there are companies around, you can message them and say, hey, do you have anything in the works where you need a play tester? Because if anybody were to message me, I would say, yes, Thursday night, we're all getting together. Because I regularly get people to play test the games, and I thought that would be a fun opportunity this weekend to bring my games that are still in super early stage to see what people thought. And then once you play test it, you can certainly find other ways to become part of the team. Did you guys have an answer for that as well?
I do. If you want to crack that nut, start playing games and start reviewing them. Doesn't matter if they're in playtest mode, go pick Settlers of Catan up and review it. Once you get your review portfolio, email Asmodee, email Fantasy Flight. What are they going to do? Tell you no? Okay? He used to playtest
So
for Fantasy
are
Flight.
you looking to do like playtesting for development or playtesting for like press?
Probably more for development.
For development?
It's just something I've thought about. I'm not super creative.
Yeah.
I love playing games, and if there's one thing I could see myself doing, it's playing a game and maybe being like, oh, this game mechanic, if we tweak it this way, it might make the game go faster or more fun.
Yeah, well, I did that. I wrote to a bunch of publishers whose games I liked. Among them was Fantasy Flight Games, and I said, I'm looking to do more development and design of my own. Are you looking for anyone to help develop and review and polish your games? And they have a whole team of people who do that for them, and they put the big list in the back of the rulebook. And these are all people who've gotten copies of the game, played them with specific objectives in mind, and given them a written report back, and then had dialogues with their developers and designers. And that's how you get started in that.
Go talk to the people at Asmodee, second
Yeah.
floor of the Hyatt in Industry Row, and see if you can get a contact there, because Asmodee's buying up everybody.
And the nice thing about it is,
Yeah, just email publishers.
I had somebody work on a Kickstarter with me who then later did their own Kickstarter, but because they worked on it with me, they understood the ins and outs of it. If you work on a game design project, a developing project, who knows, maybe in 10 years you'll be working on your own developing project and have other people helping you. So it's a really good way to know the ins and outs before you're financing your own ins and outs.
Shadow someone else before you go do your own. Be their backup, be their helper, and let them mentor you. That's what we did with Gamelin Games for Dark Rock Ventures. They constructed the project and we managed it. We brought it across the finish line. We wrapped up all the loose ends with the art direction and the design and everything, and that's, we kind of broke off from that. So it's a progression, and you can definitely make it. It's attainable. That's just what worked for me.
We really appreciate all of you for coming to see us. Thank you so
Thank you all
much.
so much.